What I'm going to talk about today is the profession, the wider world of the profession, and why, after 30 years of myself in that profession, I took over the job of running the Institute, and why the time is so good for this profession. It might sound strange with the world we live in at the moment, but I do believe through adversity, this profession has a huge opportunity. I call it seizing and sustaining the opportunity. I personally had 10 years reporting to the chief exec of two major multinationals on board level as a supply chain director. So I personally have had the experience of this profession at the highest possible level within the enterprise. And in terms of the modern leader's dilemma, and this is where, one of the privileges of this role is I get to talk to a lot of chief executives, a lot of senior government people, and the things they're faced with, I think the first thing we have to do is understand what they're faced with before, obviously, we understand our own role within it. And there's things here such as how do we become a continually transforming organisation, fast and responsive. These are the items I get given to me when I talk to these people about saying, we are in a transforming world. Nothing stands still. So what was right yesterday is not right tomorrow. How can we transform from vertical asset rich to virtual? Now, this, certainly when I started out 30 years ago, was very much the norm. It was all about vertical structures. Interestingly now, talking to people like Google, they do not have vertical structures. They have virtual structures. They outsource, or they never actually had in, middle management. What they do is they outsource expertise. Of course, that puts a huge emphasis on our profession, because if the enterprise, whether it's private or public sector, and obviously more and more public sector through what we hear in the news and what's going on, then more and more we have to get those outsourcing decisions correct. How can we meet the increasing challenge from analysts and stakeholders? Now, obviously, this is more to the private sector, but again, there's a huge emphasis now on the supply chain as part of the success of any enterprise. Interestingly, an example I often quote, two major insurance companies now are offering insurance policies on supply chain. This is beyond the normal supply chain. This is insuring everything from wars to political strife, etc., etc. And of course, the Institute's playing a role in that by offering our products as a premium reduction. But the very fact that we're getting insurance companies now, major insurance companies, involved in this space shows how seriously they are taking it. Analysts themselves now look at supply chains and will downrate a company based on performance of their supply chain. And I personally had the experience of that from the other side. And of course, the changing environment and workforce. We hear a lot about Generation Y and their different expectations. And it's obviously part of what a leader has to counter. I've called this when the oxygen runs out. The leader's challenge, it's getting more and more difficult. The oxygen runs out. If we don't have our supply chains under control, you see here things like loss of fossil fuels. Major oil companies now predicting we will run out of oil and coal, etc., or not run out of it, but actually demand will exceed supply within the next 2 to 3 years. That is a serious issue in terms of logistics. Increasing globalization, increasing complexity. How complex are our roles today, where at a touch of a button, we're engaged with suppliers around the world, or any entity around the world. And value is increasingly created external to the enterprise. I saw this quote somewhere, and it's, the more I thought about it, the more true it is. The value of the enterprise is mainly created through, or increasingly created through, the external environment that it trades with. Of course, that again puts a huge emphasis on our profession. So, at the end of the slide there, obviously the conundrum of this is if you don't do these things, and again, this is talking to leaders of enterprises and public sector, then, things go wrong. Things go wrong. So, I talked about logistics. We are seeing a huge increase in transportation costs. Supply risk is becoming very much at the forefront of the agenda wherever I go and whoever I talk to, whichever country it's in. Rising labour costs. Who would have thought we'd have seen 20% increase in prices in China? Commodity volatility is getting extreme. The whole area of volatility was a main theme of our conference in Australia last week, and how important it is to the success of any enterprise, again, whether it's private sector, increasingly whether it's public sector. Increasing UK legislation is obviously one that affects us and is not going to go away. And sustainability, we know we cannot avoid the fact we are at the forefront of sustainability and all the things that go with that around environment. And the Institute's got a huge role to play in ensuring that we get control and make sure our profession understands its role and remit within that environment. So, in terms of leaders and why is the role of the Institute is about making sure we have good leaders, good procurement leaders. I've talked about the opportunity. The opportunity will only exist for us and stay for us if we sustain it. To sustain it, we have to be more than just purchasing people. We have to be more than just cost saving. And these are some of the areas we need to look at. It's about promoting our contribution. One thing we do not do well, and I include myself in this, we do not sell ourselves well. We do not market ourselves well. We have to improve that. Because the story we have to tell as a profession, I believe passionately, is without precedent. And for the fact for many years we've been seen as somewhere down in the depths of the organisation, I believe strongly is changing. And the more I see and the more people I talk to, the more that's happening. To the point now where country leaders are talking to me about procurement, ministers are talking about it. They get the message. There's something out there that they need to understand. But again, it comes at a price. The door is open, the top table is open, but if you don't maintain that and show that you can add value at that level, it will go away very, very quickly. So a journey to professional success. When I started out 30 years ago, these are the sort of things you were expected to know. You actually get the part in the right time, you got the cost under control, you did your negotiation and your contract management. It's a lot more than that now. It's about all these other things. It's about the upstream capability, about ensuring that we understand relationship management, we understand what the markets are about, advanced supplier management, outsourcing management, the things I mentioned already. It is far more than what this role used to be. I get asked a lot about what the title of this activity should be called, and the names vary from purchasing to procurement to supply, and I'm sure you've all had the experience of discussing this. And it's interesting, in some countries something means one thing and in a different country another. I do believe the whole area is supply management, and I do believe this is as strongly pertinent to the public sector as it is to the private, that it's one thing to negotiate a contract. It's much more than that to actually manage that contract through to satisfactory conclusion. And where I believe we lose sight of things is when we don't manage through the post-contract side. Perhaps we don't even look at it up front properly and do proper market analysis. Perhaps we don't understand the true value chain of what we're involved in. It is far more than just cost management. This is a message I keep on talking to, again, people, whoever will listen to me. I guess people get fed up of listening to it, but the message is extremely important. We are all these things. Of course, it's all, we can't be the jack of all trades, we can't be a generalist. We have to make sure that we do appeal, so we do control key areas and do manage key areas properly and have boundaries to what we do as we become generalists. I'm going to very briefly touch on the role of the Institute. I'm sure many of you are well aware of the Institute and what it does, but traditionally this is the area it was involved in. It was involved in MSIP's qualification, the diploma level, degree level. It was representing the profession somewhat in terms of purchasing. It was involved in a certification product, and it was involved in membership benefits. Now, as we've seen the profession change, and it's not standing still, because the world isn't standing still, our profession will only move forward if it adapts to what's going on in the wider world. So the Institute needs to adapt to ensure that we support what you, the professionals, need in your roles. And I will be failing if I do not ensure that we have those supports for what your needs are. So whenever I meet anyone, I ask the question, what more can the Institute do for you? So, these are some of the things that we are starting to move into to ensure, again, that we have these support mechanisms for you as the supply professionals, all the way from representation at senior levels, media coverage, advanced education products. An interesting one there, and I'm not sure how many in this audience would be getting involved in it, but capital projects. huge skill sets required in capital projects, as they are in mergers and acquisitions, whether that's private sector or in terms of expanding what a public sector entity is. We need to ensure you have the ability to understand those areas and work within them. And sustainability will not go away. That is here for the future. And interestingly, and one of the interesting facts I found when I started the Institute, we have over 19,000 students in China now actively involved in our examinations. I mean, what a great message that sends, that the buyers of tomorrow, mainly in the public sector, I will say, in China, are heavily involved in a British institute in understanding and taking our courses, our exams. Advanced supply management, I won't read all the slides out, but 2 products that we are developing very quickly to meet your needs and will be available very soon is Beyond MSIPs, which is a CPD program, continuing professional development. So it recognises once you've got your diploma, that's not the end of the game. You've got to keep on learning and improving to get to a higher level. And the other one is award for non-professionals, non-procurement professionals. More and more, whether we like it or not, people are involved in our profession that will never, ever have the intention of making a career out of it. So this is a product, or an award, competency level, which will ensure that those people have a level of competency in their profession, even though they don't intend to be professionals or purchasing professionals. So, to the public sector, visibility and accountability of this is clearly huge at the moment. There's no question of that, and I'm very conscious that John Collington's in the audience, and working closely with John, that this is not going to go away. And I get a lot of media requests to talk about, well, how's procurement going to save the world? In the problems we're having in the whole UK, how will procurement save the world? Well, I tell you, we have to provide this solution. We must not be seen as the problem. And that's a very important distinction for me, where it can be easily seen that procurement's the problem. You just got to look at the papers, Ministry of Defence, whatever. We've got to turn that around so that we're seen as driving this and being seen as part of the solution. Total supply management I've talked about. It is unavoidable. We are in that space. In public sector as much as in private sector, we manage the whole supply function. Talked about make versus buy. It's evident, very evident, that many councils in the UK, in England particularly, I think it's the same up here, are getting more and more involved in looking at outsourcing. That's absolutely to be expected as the cost pressures increase. We have to get that space right. We have to ensure we have the right skills. I've seen many examples of mistakes in outsourcing. Bad decisions made, the wrong things outsourced, often a problem outsourced to make it worse. That's a huge area that we as a profession will be expected to show expertise in the coming months and years. I think collaboration is a key one in terms of working together, sharing best practices. Obviously, I would say it, but the Institute's got a key role to play there as well, ensuring we have those best practices, but that we work with each other. I do know there's a lot of good examples up in Scotland, and I will go on record as saying from the people I've talked to up here that there's huge advances being made in data management and in how you manage your contracts and suppliers, which is great news. It is really great news and very encouraging that we got there, but we are not at the end of the game yet. There's a long way to go. And as I said, data accuracy to demonstrate performance is essential. I'm sure many of you have been there, I certainly have, on the hard end, or the receiving end, of declaring savings that didn't actually, to the business, didn't actually exist. Or at least they couldn't find them. Data accuracy is fundamental to that.